inspired and hopeful these days. But my name is Kristen Shenk. I'm the founder and creative director of Multi-NYC. We're a multidisciplinary design and creative agency based in New York. So I wanted to give a little bit of a quick overview of some of the things that we work on before getting into the meat of the presentation. We work with a series of Fortune 500 companies such as Nike, Foot Locker, PepsiCo, as well as some really cool startups. So for example, we worked with a Shanghai-based maternity wear company last year that creates apparel, footwear, and skincare. I'll share more on this later. A women's apparel startup called Downtown, and a probiotic company geared toward athletes that we're kind of building their full brand creative and getting ready to launch them next week. I'm here to talk to you today about storytelling, one of my favorite topics, and something we take very seriously at Multi. You may ask, why am I qualified to give a presentation on this topic? Well, throughout my career, I've had the opportunity, very fortunate, to work at some very cool companies and formed sort of a postgraduate education of sorts in a lot of ways, starting with Nike. So I spent 8 years designing and art directing at the Swoosh, where it's really just a storytelling, design, and marketing powerhouse, right? So at a company like Nike, storytelling is so ingrained in the DNA of the company from top to bottom that it didn't really matter if we were creating a giant brand campaign or simply giving an internal presentation. Storytelling was really table stakes at the company. So whether it was creating a campaign for a new technology, a new footwear technology, or launching a new basketball shoe, or creating a branded experience, a t-shirt graphic, or kind of a strategy or creative direction for the Olympics, storytelling was always really at the center of everything that we did. So this is precisely why Nike connects so deeply with consumers. Storytelling really has that power to build brand love, and my time there really set up a really kind of key foundation for storytelling moving forward. From there, I moved across the country to New York and joined another marketing powerhouse, PepsiCo. So there I led global design for Mountain Dew as well as Aquafina, and continued that storytelling journey in a very sort of different industry, getting into CPG and telling stories in a more of a refreshing way with beverages and food versus sports. So from there, I never wanted to sort of settle for my comfortable, albeit demanding corporate job. I left the corporate world in 2018 to pursue entrepreneurial endeavors. I started Multi-NYC to continue telling stories, but now from a new vantage point. In the same way that working for Nike was a continuous lesson in storytelling, this transition was yet another education in storytelling. However, this time, less so from a purely design and marketing standpoint, and more from a personal storytelling point of view. So, it's one thing to craft a story from the point of view of a brand to a consumer, but that's, sort of one narrative to master. But I also started thinking about, what are those stories that I tell myself? What are those more internal stories that either kind of hold me back or propel me forward? So I kind of made the decision to sort of intentionally strip away those titles of Kristen Shenk, Nike designer, or PepsiCo creative director, so that I could write a brand new story, sort of create a new body of work with new people and new brands. So I found myself sort of staring at this blank page. Like all the work that I'm showing you today, didn't exist. So it's sort of like, okay, what's next? What's this new chapter? So this idea of chapters is really interesting to me, and how each chapter in life sort of calls us to close the book on that previous chapter, and not sort of hold on to that in order to kind of carve out this new and interesting story that lies ahead. So, today I want to talk to you about good old-fashioned visual storytelling, How do you create a compelling narrative? What are some of the building blocks of visual storytelling? How do you create a red thread through brand narrative? What are some tactical ways to improve your storytelling? But I also implore you to consider some of those stories that you tell yourself. Storytelling really is a superpower, so let's be intentional about the stories that we tell. What stories propel you forward? What stories hold you back? And how does your internal narrative support your creative work? So, we're talking today about crafting a compelling story, but what is that story that you're telling yourself? Is it not only compelling, but is it also constructive? Storytelling is really what kind of separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom, right? So we have this extremely powerful tool that allows us to imagine new possibilities and create new realities. It allows us to innovate, emote, connect. We're all storytellers, really. We were born storytellers. So it's really a matter of, are you tapping into this natural, innate ability to tell stories, and are you believing in yourself that you really are a superhero storyteller? And it's really the most important story of all is sort of this story that's in between your ears. So I also find this idea of creation of storytelling to be one of life's great mysteries. Like, how does one even come up with a story? It's like kind of this weird, mysterious, like vague, nebulous process. And honestly, I really don't know. It's sort of a mystery, but I think I can share some sort of building blocks today that can maybe help inform some ways to cultivate some better storytelling. So first and foremost, storytelling is really about collecting life experiences and applying those experiences to your work. So, every experience, every moment in your life helps to build your storytelling capabilities, and every life experience makes you uniquely positioned to tell a story in a very special way, in a way that's from your voice, from your perspective, and that's unique to you. So I find that just very simply collecting life experiences is a way to boost your storytelling. It's about being curious, right? It's about traveling as much as you can afford to. It's about reading and watching and absorbing. It's about having meaningful conversations. It's about learning things outside of your field that are outside of just the creative realm. And it's about going to see art. It's about putting your phone away. Stop multitasking. It's multitasking is not going to help you become a better storyteller. So it's really about experiencing the world, about seeing, touching, tasting, looking, listening, and just taking it all in and being curious. Because after all, storytelling is less about creating something original out of nothing. It's more about connecting the dots, about kind of forging connections, finding patterns, and adapting what's already there in your own way. So secondly, you have to collaborate. A diversity of perspectives that are sort of informed by those aforementioned life experiences creates really much more powerful and dynamic storytelling. Collaborate with people who are different from you, who have different backgrounds, who are from different places. At Multi, we really pride ourselves in this idea of collaboration. It's part of why our name is Multi. It's short for multidisciplinary, but it's also just this expression of kind of being multifaceted. So we have sort of our core team of creatives, but we're really not shy about looking outside of our core team and bringing on external collaborators that can help us make the work better. So we bring in collaborators from all over the world to help us tell a brand story, and we sort of give a voice to those who have something to say. So it's not always about being like the hero or the star in the room. It's really more about allowing other people into your world and using the talents and skills of other people to help your work become better. So I want to share an example of sort of this radical collaboration at work. We created 2 films for a maternity wear company called Z. The company creates fashion-forward apparel and innovative footwear and skincare for pregnant women. They're based in Shanghai, and they're founded by Europeans. And they brought on a creative director that's American to tell their story. And then the film was directed by an Australian. So you can already see that just this diversity of perspectives starts to build a really rich process to create the work. So seeing as though it's a brand for pregnant women, it was really critically important for me to bring on female creatives, including a female director and photographer. We also had some really cool guys working with us, like our copywriter, Kaylee Crafton, who formed this really beautiful poem about bringing new life into the world, and an amazing DP, Kevin Garrison. But having that female director for the film was non-negotiable, so I brought on an incredible director named Sophia Banks, a really award-winning prominent director, and photographer, Kat Page, to help us bring this story to life. So, with this series of female creatives, we are really well positioned to tell this story that connects on a deep emotional level with expecting mothers. So the insight is that pregnant women can easily sort of lose their identity throughout pregnancy. So we wanted to create a film that empowers her and celebrates her, that allows her to kind of maintain this idea of being beautiful and fashionable, but also having products that are comfortable and support her throughout this journey. So we really kind of created this dichotomy of strength and beauty, style and comfort, and power and femininity. So I'll roll the two videos here. One is a brand video that's sort of more anthemic, and then the second is a behind-the-scenes look at a video featuring the founders, Marco and Kosher Fuller, and the cover designer, Jeff Henderson.
Jeff Henderson. I'm a footwear designer in New York City. My background in footwear design started out in engineering. I graduated and got a job working for Nike and then doing projects like Cole Haan, Yeezy, and Under Armour.
Fashion's missing in maternity. Women say boring, old fashioned. I don't feel myself.
The maternity industry is just really oversized. We want to bring innovation to her life when she's pregnant.
We ask people what are the struggles, and it was always feet.
You guys approached me about doing issue with maternity. I thought that was a big game changer. One of the unique challenges in Design Zero is that there's no real footwear that was designed for maternity. So the idea that we had to start from scratch was really exciting and do something we didn't know I'd ever done. Treating pregnant the way a sports company would treat athletes.
Professional athletes get the best equipment, the best service, the best experience. When you look at the woman when she's pregnant, she deserves all of that as she is in the journey of creating life.
We created 3 ads for women: function, fit, and fashion, all in one product.
The key benefits of the Zero sneaker: interchangeable soles. You add in extra support to adapt to your changing body. Full linen rubber outsole, excellent for stability, anti-slip grip. It's got maximized comfort with a stretchy, breathable knit, with a resilient foam, so it's better fit. Elastic strap, so it's easy to get in and out of the shoe. For style and versatility, you can wear this with anything.
We are revolutionizing the attitude towards pregnant women. We want to empower her and celebrate her. She's so beautiful, confident.
The pregnancy process is so individual and different for each woman. I think it's very important to be yourself at this moment.
Happy mama, happy baby. It all comes down to you always.
Cool. So the next point, the next sort of building block of storytelling is to present a new perspective. So an example of this that I wanted to share is from our Foot Locker Home and Away campaign. The campaign highlighted 5 Tier 2 cities throughout the United States. We presented each city in a new way, which was through the lens of sneaker culture. So this kind of gave us the opportunity to present these cities through a slightly different perspective than these cities are normally showcased, and it allowed the viewer to uncover an interesting subculture of each city. So, furthermore, instead of trying to be the expert, I'm not in some of these cities. I hadn't even been to before. We brought in the locals. So again, collaboration. But we set up a roundtable discussion with local musicians, professional athletes, influencers, and sneaker enthusiasts, and allowed them to tell the story of their city. So that really formed kind of a really deeply personal and authentic story told from the local perspective. So the visual storytelling was also really key to this campaign. We first spent a day capturing B-roll of our talent throughout the city, and then projected the footage behind this roundtable discussion. So this sort of created a rich tapestry of multi-layered storytelling that included not only the meaningful dialogue from our talent, but also this kind of compelling visual layer. So I'll roll two videos from this campaign, Philly and Dallas. The 5 cities were Baltimore, Detroit, Seattle, Philly, and Dallas. So we'll just share a couple of them. So here is Home and Away.
For me, the sneaker community is so very different from the other cities. Everybody individualizes themselves. And that's what I love about Philly. Everybody do their own thing.
Sneaker getting crazy in the hood. That's the Philly mentality, right? They gotta stay fresh.
What do home and away mean to y'all?
Home is feeling comfortable. This is where you belong.
Being away, I'm taking a piece of myself. I'm putting it on display for other people.
These are the Nike Air Max Speeds for home and away.
It's 2 statement sneakers. We believe it speaks for itself. I don't think everybody in the city is obsessed with Philly.
That's what we do, especially when we get support from other Philadelphians.
Everybody has their own personal flavor. It's all about what you want to represent for yourself.
We obsessed with maintaining reputation.
It's all about the kids. Definitely got an obsession with Foot Locker. Let's start at the whole collection point.
Started building out my closet. Started with 3 pairs of sneakers, and now it's concrete.
We got a big obsession with everything that we do.
Philly is the most obsessed because sneakers.
Why do you think Dallas is so hungry?
We're really starving for a big opportunity, and that's what's super passionate about our team, our style, our music, the way we dress. We're hungry to expose that to the world. When I got here, I had to prove myself. You can't do that if you ain't hungry.
Dallas is hungry because we've been overlooked for so long. We've grown so much, and I think we're ready for something more.
You walked and asked me after I scored a touchdown why I'm celebrating, and it's because I'm hungry for more.
Let's describe sneaker culture in Dallas.
3 words: small but mighty.
Dallas sneaker culture is on the rise. We have sneaker enthusiasts who are really shifting the culture from Dallas' perspective.
It's deeper than shoes.
Let's talk about these Air Max 97 home and away.
This is skyline all day.
As the Pegasus right there,
The Dallas area codes on the back.
it's just a complete example of Dallas.
The sneaker community in Dallas is hungry.
Hungry, the most hungry. It's our time to shine, baby.
So I have to say, from a personal note, while we were traveling to these 5 cities and creating this campaign, even by myself looking at these cities through this lens of sneaker culture, I really got to see these cities in a whole new light. Like even Baltimore, I was like, wow, Baltimore's great, love it. It was really kind of a meaningful experience from a creation standpoint, and it not only allowed viewers to see cities through a new perspective, but even allowed the creators to look at these cities through a new perspective as well. So fourth, craft a laser-focused message. So, this is really about creating clear, simple, concise storytelling. You have to really get clear about what you want to say before diving into the creative process. If you have clients, you need to be fully aligned with the client on what exactly you want to say, being crystal clear and fully aligned. If you're not clear on the message, then the consumer is certainly not going to be clear on the message. So this is really important before even really picking up a pen and paper. I recently watched a masterclass with Aaron Sorkin on screenwriting, And he has stressed about a dozen times that you need to outline the hero character's intention and obstacle. So what do they want and what's getting in their way before writing one word. So the same philosophy really applies to any type of storytelling. In the case of myself and Multi in our work, it's really about strategy and communication just being super aligned with the client on that. So it doesn't matter if it's a full campaign, a website, even just a single visual. It's really about just getting super clear. What do you want to communicate, and then also how do you want people to feel? So, for example, I had the honor of working in Nike basketball for a few years, working on the brands of LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. So we very strategically set up that Kobe's brand is about speed, and furthermore, sort of lightweight speed, while LeBron's brand and shoe were more about power. So these weren't just random insights, right? They were derived from the athlete, their style of play, the products that support them, the storytelling message around their shoes. But by establishing this very simple and clear strategy, we could create a meaningful narrative across the campaign. So it's even more important to get laser focused when you're creating global campaigns, because just the scalability of everything and making sure that whether this is being communicated in the US or China or South America or Europe or what have you, that this is all telling a really sharp and consistent message. So then, interestingly, once you really laser focus on what that message is, you actually open up the creative possibilities within those parameters. So with Kobe, we started with footwear and athlete key visuals, but then we created this essence of lightweight speed with this idea of kind of implied motion, this sort of stop motion sort of effect. And then we were able to create something slightly different at retail. So we created this sort of paper airplane metaphor to communicate that idea of lightweight and fast. So instead of just repeating the key visual, we could really create more of a full ecosystem that all laddered up to the same core concept. So not everything needs to match in order to tell a consistent story. So because we were so laser focused on that core concept of lightweight speed, then we had that freedom to then express that in a variety of different ways. This also set us up to effectively create contrast. So as I said, Kobe was about speed and LeBron was about power and control. So our key visuals highlighted the flywire technology of the shoe that helped LeBron's feet stay locked in and helped power his game. And then we use these visual metaphors of the lion and chest armor inspired by action heroes. Our product video then sort of reinforced that action hero vibe by building these powerful plates onto LeBron's foot. So again, we were able to create the feeling of strength, power, and control across a variety of assets instead of just repeating the key visual over a headline. So fifth, create a red thread. So this really means just creating continuity across a campaign. And the example case study I wanted to share is for Mountain Dew. So in this case, it was quite literally a green thread. But with Mountain Dew, we created a visual system that used this sort of kind of green streak to symbolize this sort of current of energy that literally runs through the creative and connects the campaign all together. This particular campaign was for Mountain Dew and NBA, but it also laddered up to a bigger brand narrative that was not specific to basketball. The brand also, has a key stake in sort of the skateboarding world and gaming and things like that. So this is just one kind of small pillar of it. We wanted to, create this consistency through things like color, typography, imagery with the black and white imagery, and this all kind of led up to All-Star weekend in New Orleans. You can see that this sort of red thread or green thread runs through all communications, and similar to the Nike examples, we can create a little bit of variety within the constraints, but I think here we kept it a little bit tighter. So that anything from key visuals to animations to the web, all the way through to a branded activation at All-Star Weekend has this same kind of visual energy to it. So, throughout visual storytelling, you have the opportunity to tell a bigger and more connected story by extrapolating to a variety of media and applications. I think, if you are in an opportunity to push to tell the story in different media, that's great. It doesn't always just have to be like out of home or social. It can be, you can really push to tell a bigger story and kind of, imagine the new possibilities and propose new possibilities that may not be briefed. So, creating this sort of 360-degree experience in which the medium changes throughout the consumer journey, but the story stays the same. So from a consumer point of view, they don't know the behind the scenes of creating the strategy. They just are kind of subconsciously connecting dots between this thing that they saw on their phone and this thing they saw on a billboard. So, quite simply, leveraging the power of color is huge, and just creating some tight visual consistency throughout the campaign. So next, I wanted to talk about building romance and creating theater and creating some hype. So I have a few examples to share that illustrate this, a couple past examples from my time at Nike, and then a more contemporary example from my multi-team with Foot Locker. So, you don't want to just simply tell a story. You want to dramatize it. You want to make it bigger. You want to sort of make it larger than life. You want to sort of romance and woo the viewer into your world. So the first example of this is from a big PR event that we staged here in New York City at Spring Studios. The event was a showcase all around Nike women. So the event was a multi-room, multi-floor, multi-day event. But the example I'll share here is just one small slice. It was just one portion of this larger event that focused on the history of Nike women. That we sort of called this DNA room. So it was the first room that event attendees kind of walked through when they got to the event. And there, as they walked in, they were sort of, the first thing they saw was this massive Greek goddess of victory, the Nike, sculpture by Kendall Buster. And then around the room, we told this sort of multidimensional story about the history of Nike women. And it sort of started on one wall with a series of old Nike women ads. So these ads were about Title IX, they were about empowering women in sport, featuring campaigns like If You Let Me Play and Make Yourself. So we sort of remixed the ads, if you will, and projected some of the key commercials on top of the graphic remix. And then adjacent to that were a series of stacked light boxes featuring key product innovations from Nike's past. And then next to that was a wall featuring a series of architectural pedestals celebrating key milestones and victories of athletes like Joan Benoit, Paula Radcliffe, and Serena Williams, along with the apparel innovations that they wore during those victories. So we pulled these things straight from the Nike vault. They're one of a kind. The fact that we didn't even put any glass on it was a little risky, but it's really cool and powerful just to see these items in the flesh and using that history as a powerful storytelling device. So, here we tapped into history, we tapped into nostalgia, we tapped into, these story journeys of women in sport. So the moral of the story, it's not about just selling products, it's about looking back in order to look forward. It's about progress, it's about triumph, it's about human spirit. And, that's really what storytelling is about. So, anytime you can push a brand to go deeper in the storytelling and connect with consumers on a more emotional basis, the more that people will fall in love with your brand. Another example of storytelling from more of a theater and experience point of view is from a very intimate experience for an audience none other than LeBron James. So this was many years ago now, but at that time I designed a book for that was basically gifted to LeBron. And the book celebrated him as a player from his days growing up in Akron all the way to, at that time, which was, present day at that time, which was him playing for the Heat. And we chronicled LeBron not only as one of the best basketball players of all time, but also as a person, a father, a philanthropist, etc. So it was, I think, unique in that we were really showing him these different aspects of himself and treating him like a human being and not just this sort of one-dimensional athlete. So the story was told 100% through quotes of other people, which was a really unique way to tell the story, and all of this credit goes to my copywriting counterpart, Jason Effman. And we then constructed a live physical experience for LeBron, and again, like a lot of effort going into this very intimate experience, but it's important to craft these stories, even if it's a small audience. So we basically kind of presented to him this over of accomplishments and his shoes from the past. We vinyl typography from the book onto the wall and projected game highlights on top of the typography and some of his Nike ad campaigns. And then at the end of the shoe pedestal, we left a series of blank pedestals, and this was really a question to LeBron to say what's next and signal that, hey, your story's not over. We have more to write together, you and us. So a really kind of deeply personal story for and with LeBron. So then lastly, I want to talk about, also creating theater in a way that's digital. So, especially in this world where live experiences are not quite happening for a while, how can you create that same amount of theater and hype and romance digitally? We all know the importance of digital and interactive communication these days. So for Foot Locker's collaborated program, we set up a very strategic launch strategy to tease the campaign, create some hype before revealing the full product collection. So basically what this campaign was, it was kind of in response to the events of last year and really creating kind of a relief program for those in need who are kind of most affected by the pandemic. So I'll show you the intro to the program and then some of the series of teasers and then finally the full kind of product launch. And this hinged on 15 capsule collections with different kind of influential creators. You'll see how this sort of plays out. So here's the intro to the program. This is the very first thing that people saw on social to launch the program. So kind of builds intrigue, talks a little bit about what's to come, and then we followed that up with another teaser where we started to tease out the artists that were involved in this collaboration. So you see names like A$AP Ferg and Jason Woodside that kind of pick people's interest and say they're like, what is this? I wonder what's coming next. So then we the next stage was kind of individual communication around each artist. So we first teased out animation that did not include any product, like you just saw, and then the next stage of the journey was to ultimately reveal the product. And this was like the big reveal. Then there's a call to action for people to go online and shop this exclusive collection. Furthermore, that was paid off by a series of still images that were communicated mainly mainly through social and digital channels. So we had Chinatown Market, Daily Paper, a lot of really cool collaborators involved in this program. So the last building block I wanted to talk about, and certainly not least, is about what I mentioned at the beginning about building your self-story. So, sometimes if that's simply about ignoring stories that don't serve us and that might potentially hold us back, and just getting started with storytelling is the hardest part, right? Like anybody who started to craft a story knows the intimidation factor of a blank page that is lying in front of you, and the hardest part is just literally starting. So, you have an idea, just start. It can be the tiniest little baby step. It can feel like it's hardly anything, but it's the important thing is really just about taking action and starting. And from there, it's really about kicking fear to the curb. We're all scared to put ourselves out there. We're all scared to put our creative work out there, to put our stories out there, on the stage to be critiqued. But the fear is normal, and you may not necessarily get rid of it altogether, but that doesn't mean it can stop you from taking action. So by taking action in spite of fear, you really have the opportunity to transmute that into courage. And that's a much better story to be living out than fear. And then from there, it's about just keep going. It's any storytelling process is iterative, right? It's really about just continuing to iterate, refine, get feedback. Look for constructive criticism and keep going, keep it moving. And it's about progress, not perfection, and just keeping that storytelling going and making it better and better and better and crafting the details until it's telling that sharp story. And then most important of all is remember that you have this superpower of storytelling already inside you. You were born with it, and you just have to tap into it, unleash it, and use your heart and soul, as well as some good strategic thinking to fuel your story. I hope you got a little bit out of this today and are a little bit inspired to craft your own stories. But please follow us on Instagram at multi, that's MLTI_NYC. You can find more case studies on the web at multinyc.com. Hit me up at Kristen@multinyc.com to talk about, storytelling. I love talking about this, or to collaborate, etc. And thank you. Happy to chat further now and open it up for Q&A and whatever else Leo advises.
All right, what a refreshing presentation, Kristen. Awesome job. We enjoyed very much. So if you guys have any questions, please paste in chat. Or you can just maybe raise your hand and join the chat. And then please don't miss out on the networking opportunity on your board, and just paste your LinkedIn information on there, and we can have some chat later on. So does anybody have any questions? Please paste them in chat. I guess not. But awesome presentation. But
does anybody want to tell a story of their own?
Well, I do have one question. I couldn't figure out where to paste the chat.
Please feel free.
So I was wondering, so you mentioned that you collaborate with a lot of different people, and I was just curious how you know who to collaborate with. So I know you brought in a lot of different people, for the different city and shoe campaigns, but how did you know who to reach out to? I mean, obviously they were locals in the city, but I'm just curious to hear more on your thoughts.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, at this point, I've sort of started to be more proactive about kind of curating sort of a whole list of potential collaborators. So I have a whole Excel spreadsheet of I'm a graphic designer and creative director, but I don't animate. There are certain things that I don't do. So I have animators, I have photographers, I have directors, I have copywriters. I have a whole list of people that's constantly growing and evolving. So, I think networking is huge, just always like keeping your pulse on like who's out there, who's doing cool stuff. Like I find a lot of people on Instagram, some on LinkedIn, some people, randomly reach out to me. So yeah, it's really just like keeping your feelers out there and being a little bit more proactive about building your network. And then some of it's a little bit trial and error. Like I have some core people that I really love working with now that are kind of like go-tos, and I have like my core internal team that's fantastic. But I've also like worked with people where I was like, that didn't go so well. Like that's probably not gonna work with them again. Like you have those too, and sometimes you just have to like roll with it and like do some trial by fire.
All right, we have Kayla. Do you have any? You want to jump in, Kayla? No. Okay. So Kayla asks, "Is there?" Oh, there we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wanting to ask if there's any specific ways or models that you use to iterate on your story.
Great question. It really probably depends on the specific medium that we're pursuing and kind of the overarching timeline and the complexities that are sort of at stake. But I think very, very simply, and this doesn't always go this smoothly, but first I create concepts and kind of just the general like outline of what is the story without even starting to design or anything. It's more of a client-facing way to say like, hey, this is what we want to achieve. This is kind of the vibe. This is kind of the look and feel through a combination of like words and images and whatever things help to tell the story. Just general art direction. And that's phase one. And that's really about like getting locked on that strategy and that concept that I talked about at the beginning. I'm like just having a core concept is super important. So that's to me also like the most fun part of the process. So that's one, and then like once that's sort of approved, like I'll usually present like 3 to 4 different concepts, so they have like a range to choose from. And then after that, it becomes like the design and creation phase. So like say if it's more of a brand campaign, and it's something that's a little more like design and animation intensive, then it's about like building the key assets, like starting with like the key like 2 or 3 assets, and then getting those like locked and approved, and then starting to like extrapolate and like open the aperture. If it's something that's more of a film, it's quite a different process where like you really have to be like super buttoned up on like what's everything that you want to capture. You have like 8 hours to capture this. So what's the shot list? What's the lighting? What are the props that we have? Like having that whole deck that shows like all of the intricate details of the process. So I kind of see it as like three like big phases. It's like the creation. It's like it's the concept creation. It's the design, and then it's the refinement. But beyond that, like every process is a little bit different. And I wish there was like more formula, but I don't have one.
So I have a question. So what was your most enjoyable collaboration or experience or the person to collaborate with?
Oh, that's a good question. Do I have any clients on the call? This is like a generic answer, but it's like what I really love is just like the new people and the new challenges of every project. It's like how do you choose like your favorite child? It's not really, possible. But I mean, that being said, I really enjoy like building a relationship. So I've worked with Foot Locker like I've worked with them probably quarterly, and that's been really fun. They're really great to work with, and it's fun to kind of, I'm no longer at Nike, but I can kind of like sort of explore some of that Nike storytelling. Now these days too, I really enjoy that. That's really fun. And then that Z project, the Maternity Wear company, that was really fun. It was really cool to like create stories in a way that was inspiring for that audience. I think that audience is just spoken to in such a like core generic way, and I really enjoy being able to like create inspiration and empowerment for that category.
Right. Do you have any more questions for Kristen? Yes. Okay. So I guess another question for you is that how do you manage an interdisciplinary team, especially when you are so far apart, and sometimes and then also uh, each discipline usually has different requirements or needs. How do you balance those needs when you manage an interdisciplinary team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I've done this so far by keeping the team really tight. So, there's only kind of a small handful of us that form the core team, and that allows us to be really nimble. And then we kind of like plus up per project. So if we have a project that really needs like 3D animation, then I bring in a specialist. So I think it's about having like a team of generalists and then a team of specialists that can support and kind of allowing the specialists to kind of come in and out as like freelancers. That's kind of the business model that we work with, and that has proven to be really effective in order to keep it very interdisciplinary and not get kind of locked in on like one style or one aesthetic or one medium. It's really important to me to keep the aperture open and keep the net wide, and being able to constantly like innovate and create new ways of visual storytelling.
All right. Anybody have any more questions? All right. Well, I guess this is such a wonderful experience today. We don't usually get this kind of treat from from our speakers, but Kristen did an amazing job. And all right, I'm gonna go ahead and probably end this chat or this presentation. And please feel free to go on Miraboard for further if you want to do a little more networking, please feel free. And please join us on our next event in March for Design for Gameplay, and also in April for the Women in UX Leadership panel. And well, thank you, Kristen. This is a treat for us. And hopefully maybe we can work together someday, okay? All right.
You're very welcome, and I could use some UX designers to collaborate with, so please hit me up. I'm still looking for some amazing rock stars to work with. So.
All right, thank you so much, Kristen. All right, we'll hopefully see you again sometime. Okay. All right.
Okay. Have a great night.
See you guys. Bye.